I'm from the Bremerton area. I studied in Kitsap County with Nadine Clark. She was my original kind of piano teacher. She's, of course, since passed on, and then I worked with Irene Bowen a little bit, and then I worked with Helen Richardson. So I was kind of in the Bremerton area crew. And throughout my childhood, I was playing and practicing a lot in the classical piano route, the traditional kind of course that we take, doing little recitals and some like little competitions around the state. At some point, I got interested because I had this realization. I think I was at I don't know, I was a kid and I was at a party somewhere, and I saw somebody who could just sit down and play things on the piano, and I felt, wow, I've been practicing for so long, and the only thing I can play right now is my, D minor prelude and fugue. And this person just sat down at this party and started playing, and so it kind of set me on this, and they just played all sorts of different songs, and they were playing by ear, and so it set me on this kind of journey looking for somebody who could teach me to do that, and I was living in Bremerton, and so there wasn't a big music scene in Kitsap County necessarily at that time, so I had to kind of search around for a teacher. I ended up finding a teacher who was in Belfair, who had spent his life and career playing Hammond B3 in Las Vegas for show bands. And so I went to him, and I started taking lessons with him, and I said, I want to be able to play in a rock band. And that's kind of what started this whole thing. He goes, well, you want to play keyboards in a rock band? Okay. He's like, I should teach you how to play the blues. And so we kind of, he got me interested in jazz in this kind of roundabout way where I wanted to be in a rock band. I wanted to play with my friends who were in these garage bands, and they were playing punk rock and all this kind of stuff that has no keyboards in it, no place for a keyboardist necessarily. And anyways, as he introduced me to blues, it kind of led me into learning about jazz and playing in big bands, and it kind of, my life kind of evolved from there. I went to Cornish in the early 2000s, and I graduated, and then I toured playing in jazz groups and also playing in pop groups, and I lived overseas, and I MD'd for a few Chinese kind of touring acts, and I lived in Hong Kong and Shanghai and Beijing, where I ran jazz clubs, and I was kind of the musical director where I would hire bands, and we would play every night, usually in basements or rooftops of like the big hotel chains, so places like the Mandarin Oriental and the Shangri-La. When I got back, I decided I wanted to teach a little bit more because I've been living abroad, and it was hard to live abroad, have your visa run out, and have to move and change your whole life. And so after doing that for several years, I came back, and when I came back, I've always loved teaching. I started teaching piano lessons when I was in high school. I taught like little neighborhood kids, and it helped me. It was my job to do college, and I was teaching while I was living abroad. So I've always loved to be an instructor, and so when I got back and I wanted to put down more roots, I started Seattle Jazz Academy. And just recently we've expanded into having multiple instrument instructors, where we really started out as just a piano school. I think one of the things that's very important to me is this idea, because of my personal experience, this idea of teaching improvisation early on. And when I talk about improvisation, there's all types of improvisation. Everybody, the jazz people think that improv is just a jazz thing, but it's like, it's always been a thing through all music history. People have been improvising. And I think that was missing in my childhood, in my education, and I think it's missing probably in a lot of piano students' early lessons. And I think that if it was incorporated more, we would have more piano players. And instead of sometimes people quitting when they kind of they hit a barrier or they hit a wall or they want to do something different, maybe they would try a different angle. And one of the main things I think we can all agree on is very important is many people are musicians as possible, because we know that music is a very important part of life. Especially for people who get into it, it becomes the thing. it's one of the things people live for, and to play and to perform. So what I wanted to do today, though, is I was just going to go through, I'm not sure how many people in this group are regular improvisers or practice improvisation on their instrument. Maybe if you do, can you raise your hand so I know who to pick on? Excellent. Yes, Josie, definitely. Josie's been a long-time student of ours, and then she's been taking bass lessons lately. She's getting very good very fast. So what I thought I would do is just kind of walk through some little exercises that we use and teach to kids, but also we have some that are like more advanced that I think could be fun for music teachers to try out. And these exercises are designed to get people going right away, but I wanted to kind of show you this is what we do. You can kind of incorporate any of this stuff right away into your lessons, and it starts at a very basic level, and then there are some things that are very crunchy and dissonant, and they're kind of like what we call ear-opening exercises, and we can maybe walk through some of those. So over the last years, what I've realized is that when people start trying to improvise, like little kids have no problem jumping right in and just playing things and making things up. It's people who have a longer history with music where they haven't been practicing improvising that it starts to become trickier to kind of get the machine and the mechanism started. That's kind of what we really do a lot of at my school. People, and it kind of comes down to a few things. It's a lot of our students, when they come to us, we find out that there's kind of this baked-in fear, and it's a small fear, but there's a small fear of sounding bad and of hitting wrong notes, and sometimes there's a fear of dissonance, and so that ends up being a barrier to entry for a lot of people. Also the thought that it can be very difficult. And then the other thing that makes people, I would say, feel like they're failing right away when they start improvising is that they have maybe a different idea of what improv is than what people who improvise all the time think it is. Okay? So there's many types of improv, and there's many ways to do it. And the way that most people the improvisation that most people consider and think is what all improvisers are always doing, is they think that they're imagining a note and then playing it, or they believe they're imagining a phrase of notes and then they play. And that is a type of improv. That's probably the top advanced, lifelong type of improv that keeps people practicing their whole lives, right? Is that you're trying to learn to imagine something and then play it, and then you're realizing that you just imagined the same shit over and over again, and so then you're trying to imagine something new, right? But this is the upper end. This is like the end goal of improv. And when we look at the different types, we say, okay, well, there's this other beginning phase that's totally improvisational, which is what a little kid does when they sit at the piano, and they don't even know what they're doing. They're just slamming on the keys. Like, well, that could be argued to me that is like the most true improv there is. They don't even understand the low notes are down here and the high notes are up here yet, right? Another type of improv would be to just play totally random and just kind of move around on the instrument. The other types would be maybe one of the ones that we do when we do jazz improv and blues improv a lot is we learn famous licks and patterns and things that have the sound of jazz in them, and then we connect them together like puzzle pieces. Okay, so maybe while we're playing that little lick, or we're playing this little piece of music information, maybe that's not improvising at that moment, but the improv is happening in the scenes and how we sew everything together and how we order pieces, right? And then the other way that we improvise, like the third way, would be like taking like our music theory that we know and using that to get us into, we know that we're in the key of F, and so now we're going to use notes from the key of F to help us improvise. right? And so it kind of starts to add a little structure and rein in our kind of feeling of random playing. But we use these kind of rules of theory to help guide us to make better selections. This is where I think a lot of students spend most of their time. And so the order goes random playing, to arranging the puzzle pieces, to adding structure and rules for yourself with music theory, to then imagining and playing something. And at any moment when an improviser is improvising, they're going to be doing a mix of those things. And some people will be doing a lot of the end result, and some people will be doing a lot of the beginning, like way to improvise, where they're just kind of playing randomly. But those percentages kind of shift. When people understand that, they start to be much more open to the idea of improvising. So this is the kind of stuff that you have to explain when we have adult students that we're trying to get to improvise for the first time, and it's kind of like you got to get them in the right mindset, you know. So one of the other things that we run into, especially with people who can play or that have a big history with the piano, for instance, is that they have this ability to play the Rachmaninoff G-sharp minor print, you know, and then we're trying to get them to improvise something that sounds like the last few pages of the Alfred children's book, and it's sounding terrible, and they have this thing that they know they can go just sight read, you know, through any of the music books. There's boxes of free books, music books back there, and it's so fun to sight read, but you know, you have to set people up when you're getting them ready to improvise that they need to have the guts to sound bad and to suck for a while. And then it's kind of like we're on the same instrument, you have this whole musical life, but now we have to attack it from a different angle. You have to give yourself a forgiving ear and just know that, okay, I'm going to play things that sound really bad. And over time, we're going to shape that and you're going to gain control. So these are all things that we talk to people about when they're getting started, because it can be trickier with adults. So let's see here. There's one other story I often kind of tell students, and it's the story of two of our longtime music school students. And it's the story of Connie and Tom, and I use their real first names. And I'll use his last name, Tom Colligan. Josie Thompson. And so Tom and Connie both start taking jazz piano lessons at the same time. And Connie she has a cousin that's a concert pianist, and she's grown up and she likes to play Chopin, she plays Scriabin, she likes to play all these heavy piano pieces, and she has great facility. Tom has never played the piano before in his life, and maybe has like a little bit of guitar experience. As Connie and Tom are both getting started practicing improv at the same time, Tom immediately on the first and second lessons comes into his piano lesson, and he goes, well, I've been listening to Thelonious Monk, and he just sat down and started like pounding on the piano. Like, I'm playing like Thelonious, and he's just like taking two fingers, and he's going, whoa, I'm stuck. My pocket is, I'm taped. Oh, it's a booby trap. So Tom starts going like this. You know. And we're like, and you're like, yeah, Tom, that's great. Good job. Oh, you know, it's like sounding really intense. And he was just really bullheaded kind of about it. And Connie has the lesson after Tom, and she comes in and she knows how to play all these really beautiful things. And we're trying to play this, and the question keeps popping up. Well, what do I play? You know, what do I do? Well, okay, so we're talking about the blues scale. You know, what rhythm should I use? You know, and all these very specific questions come up. And the thing is that both of them became great at improvising. Tom's still working on it. He's getting a lot better, you know. But Tom had a really fast progression at the beginning because he was kind of in this fearless state, you know. And it was very slow with Connie sometimes because we had, you know, it was always asking why. What is it? What is improv? And part of it was because she had this different idea of what improv needed to be. And what it really means is you just play whatever you want. You just do whatever you want. And you can make that sound like a certain type of music, or you can make it sound totally random. I mean, most of the time when we improvise and we talk about random piano playing, I think if we had like a random note generator, we would have things that sound like really all over the place, and that's not really what we're talking about trying to do either all the time. So there's also like these kind of styles that you want to put your improv in. So anyways, to get started, I was thinking the first thing we do with like little kids is we run them through a couple like little exercises, and you guys might use some of these, especially on piano. So the first thing is you just start trying to play, you know, you just have them play things. You tell them to play something that sounds high. You know, you tell them to play something that sounds like thunder. This is kind of the classic early approach to playing outside or free. Try to tell them to play something fast, right? These things work really good with little kids, and they're funny, and then you can do them quickly and then move on. Other things we do would be, you know, one of the classics is that you say, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're just going to make up whatever we want to make up. We're going to use just the black notes. Sometimes this is a good way to get people involved right away because it's all a pentatonic scale and nothing can sound that bad within the black notes. So you just say, okay, well, sit there and let's just play all 8 notes in the black notes. And then you try to do 2 hands. That's too hard, obviously, for like a beginner just to have their fingers move enough. But when you practice, when you do that for long enough, you start to find places that you can kind of stop. And looking for those places where you stop, that's kind of your mind telling you, okay, this is an improvisational moment. I'm just playing randomly on the black notes, but I'm going to listen for a place to stop. And that's maybe as much as my improv brain can handle right now, and we'll just run with that. Other things we do are to just have people play 8 notes without restriction. Nice piano. And you're trying to get used to just playing a lot of notes and hear things that sound kind of maybe strange, right? Or atonal, right? And then one of the other things we do, like especially with kids when they're just starting out, is we talk to them about, trying to incorporate a little bit of the ear, right? And so taking a few notes, we set them up and we'll say, okay, well, let's take these 4 or 5 notes, and for a little bit, you just have them, just play. You try to get them to play and sing at the same time. And if they can't do that, you have them listen and then sing the note. You have them do that for a little while, and then what our goal is, as teachers at this level, is we're trying, like, okay, we hear the note, and then we sing the note, and we try to close the gap. A lot of times when people are imagining improvisers, they're thinking, they're really imagining a lot of notes ahead in the future and then playing them, but the reality is most of the time when they're doing the real thing, they're imagining and playing it, they're imagining it and playing it at almost the same time, or if you're like excellent at it, you're imagining it just before you play the note. Because you don't have the capacity to imagine 2 measures of music, right? So you just are going with the flow, and it's more of a flow state kind of thing. And so that kind of helps with this. So you have them sing, and then you have them sing it and then play it. And you can kind of stretch that out, but it's like incorporating ear training how we really use it, right? We want to imagine something and play it, and that's the ear training that we want as improvisers. So one of the next things that we do then is okay, that's great for little kids when we're starting them out, we get them trying to play things. And then we move them to maybe adding a little bit of structure. So we might put a little bit of our music theory kind of into our plan. So maybe I'll just play a perfect fifth down here, and a D and an A. And then what we do is we'll say, okay, well, so we can do a couple of things here. We have a drone, it's a D and an A. that means we can play notes in the D chord. And we just have them kind of move around. And then we'll say, okay, we're going to use this D chord and one other note. Trying to be very restrictive with these improv rules. When you have all the options in the world, it's almost impossible to learn anything. And so you have to get in here and you have to make all these very strict guidelines. And so when we're trying to train the ear and do this more imaginative type of improv. Try to have them really hang on the new note so that they can get used to kind of what that sounds like. And it doesn't have to be in the key. Beginning of your practice session, what you do is you start to learn how you can resolve notes, and how you can find the dissonance and where the pitches want to go. You don't want to resolve it. You want to take it somewhere else. Right? And so just doing a little bit of this every day is a really good way to kind of start incorporating the ear, and it is like unspecific to style, right? So it's good for, I think, all kind of piano students starting out. Then, of course, we can add more rules. We can say, okay, now we're going to use a D major scale. You just kind of keep this drum going. As they get better at that, then you say, okay, now we're going to let all the notes in.
You mean all scale notes or all white notes?
All just the white notes.
Okay.
This is kind of the spot where we have to practice living. So this is one of the other ones that we like to do. So sometimes we'll take, okay, so now we're going to say, this is for more, this would be not for a kid who's learning how to play, but maybe for a music teacher that wants to try something fun and different. So we're going to keep our F sharp drone going. And what we're going to do now is we're going to play descending major triads. Okay. And when we do this, we're going to break them up into single notes at a time. So we might come in and say, okay, here we go. F sharp. A new rule on it. Okay, so we're doing our drone, but we're using descending triads in the right hand. Cool. When anybody has ever learned to improvise, we're trying to add a lot of rules to get them to be able to learn to control something, and then we're going to change the rules just a little bit to get them to try something new. Right? So let's say we're going to do this again. That was sounding good, but now we're only going to play at most 2 notes of each try. Okay. So we're going to do the descending triads, and you can only play 2 notes of each one, and then you have to move.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so let's try. So, meaning that, yeah, so your hand has to travel up the whole time. So we start with F sharp, let's pick 2 notes. Good, and then 2 notes of the F sharp triad in the right hand.
Okay, but I'm only going up.
Yeah, but you're only going up, so you gotta start low. Okay, now you have to move to F, and it has to be above those two notes. Okay? Like this. So here we go. So here's my F sharp. Here's my F. Here's my E. Yeah, still doing the chromatic. Still doing the chromatic. They gotta move up. That's right. Right. So we start to kind of add layers of thinking as we go. Right? So what we'll do is we'll add rules and rules and rules, and we'll kind of say, we'll change it a little bit, and then at the end we'll say, okay, now we're going to just do whatever you want, right? And after a little practice session of 15 or 20 minutes, you realize, oh, okay, there's much more kind of control happening, and it kind of starts to break some of this down. You start to get lines that go. You know, and they kind of move around, and they're very atonal sounding, right? But it's really kind of a fun practice thing for people to work on.
You still know what you're doing.
You still know what you're doing, right? That's kind of the main thing. Awesome. Okay, so then one of the other things that we do all the time is we put even more structure onto it. And so, like in these in the handouts, let's see, we have a couple of like common like folk tune progressions, and we have, and one of those that we use all the time would be the 12-bar blues. And when you're studying jazz, you practice the 12-bar blues early on for numerous reasons. One reason would maybe be because chronologically, it's kind of the early start to jazz and swinging is very important in music history. One of the other reasons that we do it is because we can set it up to improvise on a 12-bar blues in kind of a, I don't want to say easy, but we can kind of simplify it a little bit so that it's manageable for people to start learning even just in a lesson or two. But you can do the same thing with When the Saints Go Marching In, or whatever the other tune that's in here, You Are My Sunshine, kind of chord changes. And so we have some different like patterns. And so one of the other ways we can do, you want to go here?
Grab my glasses.
Yeah. And so one of the other ways that we practice improvising from the beginning is we sew patterns and licks together. Right? And so there's an example here. There's a couple accompaniment bass lines.
Which one?
Let's see, that one. Okay, so we might say, okay, well, let's have somebody play the shuffle bass, right? And the shuffle bass is just quarter notes, exactly, right? And so we get people playing in one key. This is just on a C chord, and then we open up some patterns and rules that we're going to learn. So what we would do with a student who would play a little bit already, we'd have them do this left hand, and then we would have them take turns playing through, for instance, these little 6 licks, exactly. Good. Yeah, exactly. Right. Good. So let's just do this. Let's just take these first 3. So the first 3 licks we have here, this is what's called in the major blues scale. And let's just play this first one a few times. Yeah, good. And we want to, good. There's number 2. Good. And so just taking these 3 little pieces, what we say is, okay, can we mix it? How can we mix and match those 3 little licks to kind of come up with something, right? So let's try playing 3, 1, 2. Good. And then let's combine them in a way that there's no rest in between them.
Okay. Same order?
Yeah, same order. Right, and it kind of, you kind of pick little tiny puzzle pieces that can be mixed and matched. Exactly. Good. Let's try this one from the third.
Okay. Mixing in.
Yeah, let's make a make a pattern here. Let's go 3, 2.
Okay.
Good, exactly. And now what we're going to do is say, okay, once you start to incorporate and kind of learn these little licks and pieces, yeah, we'll Good, exactly. And so what we're doing is we're trying to, instead of saying, hey, take this blues scale and make something up with it, or take this pentatonic scale and make something up with it, that's good for like maybe a little kid. Maybe a little kid is going to naturally come in and say, oh, okay, cool. They just start making things up and they think nothing of it. But a lot of the times when people ask, well, what do I play at that point? Or what rhythm do I use? This is kind of one of the things we do right away. And we say, okay, well, don't worry about it. Let's just learn these 6 little riffs. Yeah, and practice arranging them. And then if you wanted, you could fill in between with some, maybe notes of the scale or some notes of the chord. Right? Okay, awesome. So that's kind of one of the things we do. And so right away, working with kids and working with beginner students, it's fun to take these left hands here and then you overlay them on the chords of When the Saints Go Marching In. Right? So you're putting, you practice it first, in position on the C chord, and then what happens is that then the left hand is moving underneath. The right hand is going to stick to the same 6 patterns. It's not going to change. When we play pentatonic and when we play in the major blues scale, we keep it the same all the time. We base it off the key of the tune. Right? And so then we can go in here and say, okay, well, can we remember those things? Like here, I have my copy. Can we put that into, yes, exactly. Put that into the chords of When the Saints Go Marching In. So now we're going to take that left hand and we're just going to follow through these chords. So here's the first measure, second measure. There we are, good. Go on the 5 chord, and there, boom.
Right.
Oh, sure, yeah, that's good, right? Or we'll just have a move to the position, yeah. Da, 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 and then mix and match the pieces on top of that.
Of these pieces?
These pieces, right?
Okay.
So let's go slower and let's just count it out. This is a 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So let's make it really simple. Let's just go back to 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, maybe while you're here.
Yeah. I think, did I mention in the handout?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, so thumb staying in position. What did I write? Let me double check what I wrote.
I just thought that would be fun to.
Yeah, sure. Well, so a lot of times, I think what I was talking about, when, a lot of times when we're playing this, yeah, you can sit down, you can do it. It's that we learn the scale. The other thing is you're trying to minimize choices, and so when we say, okay, George is going to use this C major blues scale here, right? Can you play that scale for me, please? Right. Good, exactly. And then let's put the rodeo bass in the left hand. So what I was talking about there is you have a pool of notes, and then you're going to pick a hand position. You're going to lock your thumb to a note. And you're just going to use the notes that are under your hand. And what that does is it minimizes the choices. And it gets people to think about rhythm as opposed to the no choice. And you try to have exhaust all the options. How long can you hear about your thumb on E flat or E? That's good. Yeah, that's it. Right? And so that's a great way to kind of shorten things down because people often get overloaded by the note choice. And one of the things that's really important to have a good sound improvisation is actually the rhythm choice. It's not necessarily the note choice at all. And one of the tricks we'll use sometimes when people are like, oh, well, what rhythm should I play? Sometimes we'll just say, oh, well, just look across the room and say, there's a stack of gray chairs, and use that rhythm. There's a stack of gray chairs. And like just come up with any sort of sentence that you would normally talk and use that rhythm. Yeah, and then stick on one note. Good. And then you allow, you say, okay, now you can do there's a stack of gray chairs, but we'll use two notes. Right? And so but that's the idea, right? Is that you start with this kind of plan, and as you practice, you let it kind of disintegrate. So when we get into 12-bar blues, that becomes a big thing for us. But there's also, I kind of want to show you guys some what we call ear opener drills that we kind of do. It's just for you all to try, and students that can handle something like this. This is kind of, the drum exercise we were talking about before is kind of one of these where we're trying to hear dissonant sound and get used to it. A lot of times we can kill the fear of dissonance. We can then feel like we're free when we're improvising and not be worried so much, and that lets us progress much faster. Right? So, but there are some other things. So there's this other game that we like to play, and we call it the mismatched major triads. And so the rule of this game is it's going to teach you to, it's all about listening, it's all about hearing dissonance and trying to live with it and be okay, right? And so what we do in the game is you play a major triad in your right hand, good, and then you play a fourth note in your left hand in the bass. Yeah, and it has to not match, okay? And then we move these around. So just try another one, and what you try to do is you try to get it flowing.
Am I just moving one note at a time?
Nope, you're just moving to a new triad. Let's move to a new triad in the right hand.
And a new note in the left hand?
And a new note in the left hand. They cannot match. Good, and do it again. Good, and do it again. Good, and keep going. Let's just keep this on here. It's kind of harder than it seems. Because you really want to play a note that you're playing. Good, and then we incorporate inversions in the right hand. Nice. Good, keep going. Good, that's nice. And the idea is that when we're doing all these things, you're trying to just do it and not think about what the chord is. Right? You try and take back yourself into these corners that sound intense. Yeah, do it again. next move would be, okay, now you're going to use your pinky and you can kind of make a little melody on top if you want. That's good. That's good. And then you try to get faster at kind of jumping around. You end up getting this very modern sounding, interesting improvisation. But it's all about hearing things. And then, you know, as you continue to practice it, you start to find things that you recognize. Like if I play a D triad in my right hand, if I play an E flat in the left hand, that is, you know, that is a chord. That's a chord. We're not thinking of it right away, but that's E flat diminished. You know, and we can kind of start to figure out how chords move around to each other in a weird way, in a backwards way almost. Right, and you just kind of get used to kind of playing around with it. Right? It's worth a little bit of meditating on. You know, it's your goal. And then one of the other exercises that's really fun, just to kind of wrap it up to give you guys another thing you can try to practice, is we call it the 3-note game. And I think maybe me and you have done this one before. And the 3-note game is where you take a triad in the left hand, like let's take an F triad. And then we're going to open it up to, so the A is going to go into the right hand. So we're only playing 3 notes. Yeah, that's right. And then this is kind of a voice leading, ear training kind of a game. And what we do here is we have a few rules. We have to move 1 note at a time. And it can only move a half step or a whole step. And you cannot double. We only have 3 notes. We don't want to have the same pitch happening. We can't waste our notes. Right. Yeah, good. Good. Now you're getting into some trouble spot. Okay. Good. 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 Yeah, that's a good one. Right, and so what you start to end up doing when you practice this is you start to back yourself into these corners that sound very dissonant and bad. And then you try to fix it. And then can I make a move and can I resolve this? Can I make 2 moves? Can I resolve this in 3 moves? You know, and so you just kind of work your way around the piano. Let's do that again. Let's start with that. Yeah, good. 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 Can you fix it?
Can I fix this?
Yeah. Sure. Good. Good. Right. Yeah, you can kind of move it around, right? When you're practicing this, then what you can do is you can get these, you might run into patterns that you also like. Double. Busted. Right. And then as you find patterns that you like, you might then kind of try to remember them. It becomes almost a little composition game. Because now what I'll do is I'll improvise the note to the next. You know, and you just kind of play around, right? And you see what you can come up with, but it's all voice leading, right? And so it's like a fun thing to also kind of practice.
Yeah.
Does anybody have anything they want to know? Does anybody have any questions about maybe working with improv and getting people involved. Okay.
That was great.
Well, very cool. You guys
Very
want to say
dense,
some things?
like,
Yeah, I feel like I'm talking a lot. Yeah.
Where is the Seattle Jazz Academy?
We're on Lake City Way and 15th, like Lake City and Roosevelt area.
Okay.
So
What's
just
your
off
last
that.
name?
What's say again?
What's your last name?
Grout.
Grout.
G-R-O-U-T.
Okay.
Like Alexander the Grout. All right, cool. Well, good to meet you all.
Thank you so much, man. That was great. Like another round of applause.
Wow.
It was really tremendously interesting and enjoyable. Oh, cool. Thank you so much. Plus bonus music. Peter.
Play something for us?
Sure.
Because it was nice to hear you do what you do, but
Sure.
that's really great, but
Okay.
Come on up.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about I call it called? What is this thing called?
Joy.